Marriage isn't supposed to feel like a guessing game. After 12 years with Sarah, I thought I knew her inside and out. We had built a life together, 2 kids, a cozy home, and a routine that felt stable. Sure, things weren't as thrilling as they'd been in the beginning, but that's normal, right? Life gets busy, love changes, but trust, that's supposed to be unshakable. Last Friday started like any other day. Sarah was in the kitchen, sipping her coffee while scrolling through her phone. Our kids were bickering over the last pancake, and I was already thinking about the weekend chores. "Don't forget," Sarah said as she looked up from her phone. "I'm heading out tonight. Girls' night with some work friends." I nodded, barely registering it. "Sure, have fun." She gave me a quick peck on the cheek and went back to her scrolling. Nothing about her behavior set off any alarms. She didn't seem distant or overly eager. Just Sarah being Sarah. When the evening rolled around, she left without much fanfare. "Don't wait up," she called over her shoulder as she grabbed her purse and walked out the door. I settled in with the kids, made some popcorn, and let them pick a movie. It was a typical quiet night at home, and I didn't think twice about Sarah's absence. But as the hours ticked by, something started to feel off. By midnight, she hadn't texted or called to check in. That wasn't like her. Sarah might have been a lot of things, but irresponsible wasn't one of them. I sent her a message. "Hey, everything okay?" No response. By 2 a.m., I was genuinely worried. I called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe her phone had died, or maybe she'd had too much to drink and decided to crash at a friend's place. But even then, why wouldn't she let me know? When I woke up the next morning, her side of the bed was still empty. The kids noticed her absence immediately. "Where's Mom?" Olivia, our 10-year-old, asked as she sat at the breakfast table. "She's with friends," I said, forcing a calm tone. "She'll be back soon." But as the hours passed, my calm facade started to crack. Sarah still hadn't called or texted. By noon, I was pacing the living room, my mind swinging between anger and anxiety. Was she okay? Or was something else going on? By the time the kids went to bed that night, I was exhausted, not just physically but emotionally. It had been 24 hours since Sarah left, and I still hadn't heard a word from her. My texts were unanswered, my calls went straight to voicemail. Just after midnight, I heard the front door creak open. Sarah walked in like nothing had happened, her hair slightly disheveled, but her expression calm. She set her purse down on the counter and barely looked at me. "Rough night?" she muttered before heading straight to the bedroom. I stood there in stunned silence. No explanation, no apology, just indifference. The next morning, Sarah acted like everything was fine. She sat at the breakfast table, scrolling through her phone while I made pancakes for the kids. I waited for her to say something, anything, but she didn't. I wasn't sure what I was angrier about. The fact that she had disappeared for an entire day without a word, or the fact that she didn't seem to care how it affected me or the kids. And then, just as I was trying to piece together how to confront her, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jessica, one of Sarah's old friends. "David, I need to tell you something. I wasn't sure if I should, but you deserve to know the truth." My heart sank. I stared at the message, my pulse pounding in my ears. Before I could respond, another message came through. Sarah wasn't at a girls' night. She was at a party, a private one, and it's not the kind of thing you'd want to know about. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What kind of party? What was Jessica trying to say? I typed out a shaky response. "What do you mean?" Her reply came almost immediately. "It's better if I just show you." Moments later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo. It showed Sarah in a dimly lit room, surrounded by people I didn't recognize. The context was clear, though. This wasn't just a party. It was that kind of party. The air left my lungs. I sat down, staring at the photo, my hands trembling. This couldn't be real. Sarah, my wife, the mother of my children, had been living a double life right under my nose. I didn't confront her that day. I couldn't. I needed time to think, to figure out what to do next. But one thing was certain. The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, and our life together was built on a lie. The rest of the day felt like a blur. I went through the motions, getting the kids ready for school, cleaning up the house, making dinner, but my mind was somewhere else. Every time I looked at Sarah, I felt a wave of nausea. She had no idea what I knew, and that somehow made it worse. She was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone as usual, sipping her coffee like nothing had happened. I studied her face, looking for any sign of guilt, any crack in the facade, but there was nothing. Just the same Sarah I'd always known, or thought I'd known. "Do you have any plans today?" I asked casually, trying to keep my voice even. She glanced up, her expression unreadable. "Just running errands." "What?" "No reason," I said, forcing a smile. "Just curious." She nodded and went back to her phone. Inside, I was boiling. How could she act so normal after what she'd done? How could she look me in the eye and pretend everything was fine? By the time she left the house, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I called Jessica. "Jessica," I said as soon as she picked up, "I need to know everything. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell me the truth." There was a long pause on the other end. "David," she said finally, "I wasn't sure if I should get involved, but I couldn't keep this from you. Sarah's been going to these parties for months, maybe longer." "What kind of parties?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "The kind where married people meet other married people," she said hesitantly. "It's a secret thing, and Sarah's been lying to you about it the whole time. Last night wasn't the first time." My stomach turned. "How do you know all this?" "I was invited once," Jessica admitted, "by someone in Sarah's circle. I didn't go, but I heard enough to know what happens there. When I saw her name come up, I couldn't believe it. I thought you deserved to know." I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breathing. Does she? I couldn't even finish the question. "Yes," Jessica said softly, "she's involved." "I'm so sorry, David." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The woman I had trusted with my life, the mother of my children, had been lying to me for who knows how long, and now I was left with the pieces of a shattered reality. "Thank you, Jessica," I said finally. "Thank you for telling me." After hanging up, I sat there in silence, trying to process everything. I wanted to scream, to break something, to confront Sarah the moment she walked through the door. But I didn't. Something in me told me to wait, to think. If I exploded now, I'd lose any chance of handling this on my terms. That night, Sarah came home like nothing had happened. She kissed the kids goodnight, sat on the couch with her phone, and barely acknowledged me. "Rough day?" she asked absent-mindedly, not even looking up. "You could say that," I replied, my voice calm. She didn't press further. She never did. I went to bed that night with my mind racing. I had decisions to make, big ones. But one thing was clear. I couldn't let this slide. The next morning, after Sarah left for her usual yoga class, I started planning. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. First, I needed to protect myself and the kids. I contacted a lawyer, explaining everything I'd learned. He told me exactly what I needed to do: document everything, secure my finances, and prepare for the possibility of a fight. By the time Sarah returned home that afternoon, I had already started putting the pieces in place. She walked in with her yoga mat slung over her shoulder, smiling like she hadn't just blown up our marriage. "How was class?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. "Good," she said, setting her mat down. "We're trying this new breathing technique. It's supposed to help with stress." "Sounds nice," I replied, forcing a smile. Inside, I was screaming. Over the next few days, I kept my distance, pretending everything was fine while quietly preparing for the inevitable fallout. I went through her phone when she was asleep, finding more messages, more proof of her double life. Each discovery felt like a knife to the chest, but it also steeled my resolve. By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. Bank accounts were secured, legal paperwork was in motion, and a plan was in place. Now all that was left was to execute it. By the time Friday rolled around, everything was in place. The bank accounts were locked down, the legal paperwork was ready, and I had made arrangements for the kids and me to leave without causing a scene. I knew that once Sarah realized what I had done, the fallout would be explosive. But for the sake of my children, I needed to handle this as quietly and cleanly as possible. Sarah, as oblivious as ever, seemed completely unfazed. She carried on her day-to-day life as though she weren't living a lie. That evening, she casually mentioned, "I'll be out again tonight. Another get-together with the girls." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "Sure, have fun." She didn't seem to notice the edge in my voice, or the way I avoided her gaze. She just grabbed her purse and breezed out the door, leaving me standing in the kitchen with the kids. As soon as she was gone, I put the plan into motion. I had packed our bags earlier in the week, making sure to include everything the kids would need without raising suspicion. My lawyer had advised me to act quickly and decisively, and that's exactly what I intended to do. "Kids," I said, keeping my voice calm, We're going to stay at Uncle Chris's for a little while. It'll be like a mini vacation. How does that sound? Olivia and Noah perked up at the mention of their favorite uncle. Yay, Noah exclaimed, while Olivia asked, Can we bring our tablets? Of course, I said with a smile. Now go grab your backpacks. We're leaving soon. They didn't ask any questions, and for that, I was grateful. I didn't want to burden them with the truth, not yet. By the time Sarah returned home later that night, the house was empty. I had left her a note on the kitchen counter, simple and to the point. Sarah, the kids and I are safe. Don't try to contact me until I'm ready to talk. I know everything. David. I imagined her walking into the quiet house, finding the note, and realizing what had happened. The image gave me a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't how I had envisioned our life together ending, but she had made her choices. The next morning, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls and messages from Sarah. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Instead, I focused on settling the kids into Chris's house and explaining the situation to my brother. You did the right thing, Chris said after I told him everything. She doesn't deserve a second of your time. Thanks, I said, though his words felt hollow. Despite everything, a part of me still felt the sting of betrayal. How could the woman I had loved for over a decade do this to me, to us? Later that day, Jessica called. David, are you okay? She asked, her voice full of concern. I'm fine, I said. The kids are fine. That's all that matters right now. Jessica hesitated before saying, There's something else you should know. Sarah, she's not just involved in those parties. She's been seeing someone regularly. His name is Mark. I thought you should hear it from me before you find out some other way. Mark. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just about the parties, it was personal. She had chosen someone else, someone who wasn't me, and lied about it every step of the way. Thanks for telling me, I said, my voice tight. David, I'm so sorry, Jessica said softly. You didn't deserve this. That evening, as I sat on the porch watching the kids play in the yard, I realized something important. Sarah's betrayal wasn't about me. It wasn't about anything I had done or failed to do. It was about her choices, her lies, and her inability to value what we had built together. For the first time in days, I felt a sense of clarity. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could control what came next. Sarah's frantic messages didn't let up for days. Each one ranged from angry to desperate to oddly apologetic. At first, I ignored them. I couldn't bring myself to engage with her, knowing every word she'd say would either be another lie or an excuse. But by the third day, curiosity got the better of me, and I finally opened the texts. The first one read, David, where are you? Why are the kids gone? You can't just take them without talking to me. The next, we need to talk. You're blowing this way out of proportion. And then, David, please, I'm begging you. I can explain everything. Just call me. I put my phone down, my jaw clenched. She still didn't get it. She still thought there was something she could say to undo everything. But there wasn't. That evening, I called my lawyer to update him. He told me I was in a good position to take the next steps, especially with the evidence Jessica had sent me. You're doing the right thing, David, he said. Just stay calm and stick to the plan. But staying calm wasn't easy. Every time I thought about Sarah's betrayal, I felt the anger bubbling up again. It wasn't just about the lies. It was about the sheer audacity of it all. She had carried on this double life right under my nose, all while pretending to be the loving wife and mother. On the fourth day, I finally picked up when Sarah called. David, she said as soon as I answered, her voice shaky. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Where are you? Where are the kids? They're safe, I said, my tone flat. That's all you need to know. You can't just take them, she snapped. This isn't fair. Fair, I said, my voice rising. You want to talk about fair, Sarah? Do you think it was fair to lie to me? To betray me? To put our entire family at risk because you couldn't stay honest? There was silence on the other end. Then finally, she said, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Really, I said bitterly. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like every choice you made was intentional. David, I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I made a mistake, a horrible mistake, but I love you. I love the kids. Please, just let me explain. Explain what, Sarah? I snapped. That you've been sneaking off to parties and seeing someone else behind my back. That you've been lying to my face for months, maybe even years. What could you possibly say that would make this better? Her silence was deafening. I'll be in touch when I'm ready, I said, my voice cold. Until then, don't call me again. And with that, I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words replayed in my head over and over again. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. But that wasn't true, was it? She might not have meant for me to find out. But every choice she made was deliberate. She had chosen to lie, to cheat, to put her own desires above our family. The next morning, I woke up determined to take back control of my life. I met with my lawyer to finalize the paperwork for separation and custody. The evidence I had gathered, Jessica's messages, the photos, the texts I found on Sarah's phone, painted a clear picture of her betrayal. But as much as I wanted to focus on the legal side of things, there was still the emotional weight of it all. How do you move on from something like this? How do you explain to your kids that their mother isn't who they thought she was? Over the next few weeks, I focused on creating a sense of normalcy for Olivia and Noah. I didn't want them to feel the tension or uncertainty I was carrying inside me. We stayed with my brother, went on day trips, and even started a new nightly routine of reading stories together before bed. One night, as I tucked Olivia in, she looked up at me with wide eyes and asked, "Is Mommy okay?" My throat tightened. "She's fine, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "She just needs some time right now." "Will she come back?" she asked softly. I hesitated, not wanting to lie, but also not wanting to overwhelm her with the truth. "I don't know," I said finally. "But no matter what happens, you and Noah are my top priority. I'll always take care of you." She nodded, satisfied with my answer, and snuggled into her pillow. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah's calls and messages became less frequent. Whether she was giving up or simply strategizing, I didn't know. But I knew one thing: I wasn't going back. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about protecting my kids from the chaos she had brought into our lives. And though I didn't know what the future held, I was ready to face it head on. Weeks turned into a month, and the silence from Sarah was louder than any of her words ever could have been. The calls stopped. The frantic texts came to an abrupt halt. At first, I thought maybe she was planning something, but as time went on, it became clear she was either regrouping or simply giving up. Meanwhile, I was focusing on rebuilding some sense of normalcy for Olivia and Noah. Every day was a mix of laughter and heartbreak. The kids adapted quickly to staying at Uncle Chris's, and though they missed their mom, they seemed to thrive in the new, calmer environment. One morning while we were having breakfast, my phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "David, I just thought you should know. Sarah's been talking to Mark again." I stared at the message, my stomach twisting. Mark. That name had become the symbol of everything I hated about this situation. Sarah's lies, her betrayal, and the life she had been leading behind my back. It all came back to him. I replied, "What do you mean, talking? Are they still seeing each other?" Jessica's response was immediate. "I'm not sure, but they've been spotted together a few times. It seems like he's still in the picture." I clenched my jaw, a fresh wave of anger bubbling up. She was still with him, after everything? After blowing up our marriage, hurting our kids, and pretending she wanted to fix things, she was still entertaining this man? I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew better. Confrontation wouldn't solve anything. It would only give her more ammunition to twist the narrative in her favor. Later that day, I met with my lawyer to finalize the custody paperwork. I wasn't taking any chances. Sarah's actions had proven she wasn't capable of putting the kids' needs above her own, and I was determined to protect them from whatever chaos she might bring into their lives. "I think you have a strong case for full custody," my lawyer said, flipping through the stack of evidence I had gathered. The photos, the texts, the testimonies, all of it paints a clear picture of her behavior. I nodded, feeling a small sense of relief. At least legally, I was on solid ground. That evening, as the kids played in the backyard, I sat on the porch with Chris. He had been my rock throughout this entire ordeal, and I couldn't have done any of it without his support. "You're doing the right thing," he said, sipping his beer. "Sarah made her choices. Now you're making yours." "I know," I replied, though the words felt hollow. "It's just, I never thought it would end like this. I thought we'd be together forever, you know?" Chris nodded. "Yeah, but forever doesn't mean much when one person isn't willing to fight for it. You deserve better than someone who lies and cheats, David. And the kids deserve better too." I looked out at Olivia and Noah, their laughter echoing through the yard. They deserved a stable, loving home, something I wasn't sure Sarah could provide anymore. A few days later, Sarah broke her silence. I was sitting in the living room when my phone buzzed. It was a text from her. "David, I need to see the kids. Please. We need to talk." I stared at the message, torn between anger and obligation. She was still their mother, and no matter how much I resented her, I couldn't cut her out of their lives entirely. But I also couldn't let her waltz back in as if nothing had happened. After consulting with my lawyer, I agreed to a supervised visit. It was the only way I felt comfortable letting her see Olivia and Noah. The visit was awkward, to say the least. We met at a neutral location, a park near Chris's house. Sarah showed up looking tired, almost defeated. The kids ran to her, excited to see her, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I had once loved. "Hi, David," she said softly, avoiding my eyes. I nodded, but didn't say anything. As the kids played on the swings, Sarah sat down next to me on the bench. "Thank you for letting me see them," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They needed it," I replied. "But this doesn't change anything." She sighed, looking down at her hands. "I know I messed up, David. I know I hurt you and the kids, but I still want to be a part of their lives." "Then prove it," I said firmly. "Prove that you can put them first for once." She looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears. "I will," she said. "I promise." But promises didn't mean much to me anymore. When the visit ended, the kids hugged Sarah goodbye, and I felt a pang of sadness watching them. No matter how angry I was at her, I couldn't deny that they still loved their mom. And as much as I wanted to shield them from the truth, I knew they'd have questions someday, questions I'd have to answer. For now, though, I focused on the present. The kids were safe, I was taking steps to protect them legally, and Sarah was being held accountable for her actions. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As I drove back to Chris's house that evening, I felt a strange sense of calm. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was in control. The visit with Sarah stayed on my mind longer than I expected. Seeing her with Olivia and Noah stirred something I wasn't ready to face. A small, lingering piece of me that wanted to believe she could still change. But every time that thought crossed my mind, I reminded myself of the months of lies, the betrayal, and the damage she'd already caused. The kids, on the other hand, were ecstatic after seeing their mom. They talked about her nonstop on the ride home, and while I didn't want to dampen their excitement, it was hard to hear. I kept my responses neutral, nodding and smiling when necessary, but inside, I was grappling with the reality of what our family had become. The following week, Sarah reached out again. This time her tone was more measured, less frantic. "David, I know I don't deserve your trust, but I want to fix this for the kids. Please let me prove that I can be a better mother." I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. My lawyer had advised me to maintain minimal contact unless it involved the kids, but her words left me conflicted. Part of me wanted to shut her out completely, but another part, the part that still wanted the best for Olivia and Noah, knew that wasn't realistic. I replied cautiously, "If you're serious about being in their lives, it's going to take more than words, Sarah. Actions speak louder. Start by being consistent. We can arrange more supervised visits, but only if you show me you're willing to put in the effort." Her response came quickly. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Over the next few weeks, Sarah surprised me. She showed up to every scheduled visit, engaged with the kids, and seemed genuinely focused on rebuilding her relationship with them. I still kept my guard up. Trust wasn't something I could give her easily, but I couldn't deny that she was trying. One afternoon during a visit at the park, she asked if we could talk privately. I hesitated but eventually agreed, keeping the kids within sight. "David," she began, her voice tentative, "I know I've hurt you more than I can ever make up for, but I need you to know that I'm trying to change. For them, for myself." I crossed my arms, keeping my expression neutral. "It's not me you need to convince, Sarah. It's the kids. They're the ones who will feel it the most if you let them down again." She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know, and I won't. I can't. They're all I have left." Her words hit me harder than I expected. For all her flaws and mistakes, I could see that she was struggling. She wasn't the same confident, carefree woman I had married, nor was she the indifferent person who had walked out on us. She looked broken, and while a part of me felt pity, another part reminded me that she had brought this on herself. Around this time, I also started noticing changes in myself. For years, I had let Sarah's betrayal define me, first as a victim, then as a man trying to pick up the pieces. But now I was beginning to see a future beyond the pain. The kids and I had fallen into a new routine. Mornings were chaotic but full of laughter, and evenings were spent playing games, reading stories, or just enjoying each other's company. I had started going to therapy, something I had resisted for far too long, and it was helping me process everything in ways I hadn't expected. Dr. Miller, the therapist, had a way of cutting through my defenses. "David," she said during one session, "you've done an incredible job protecting your kids and moving forward. But you're still holding on to the idea that you need to fix everything. Sometimes the best thing you can do is let go of what you can't control." Her words stayed with me. Letting go. It sounded simple, but it felt impossible. How do you let go of the anger, the betrayal, the disappointment? How do you let go of the life you thought you had? A few weeks later, Sarah reached out again, this time with a request. "David," she said during one of her visits, "I know this is a lot to ask, but I'd like to have the kids for a weekend, just the three of us. I want to show them that I can be there for them." I stared at her, my stomach twisting. The thought of letting her take them, even for a short time, filled me with anxiety. What if she let them down again? What if she exposed them to the chaos I'd worked so hard to shield them from? But then I thought about what Dr. Miller had said about letting go. Maybe this was a step I needed to take, not for Sarah, but for the kids. "I'll think about it," I said finally. Her face lit up with a mix of hope and gratitude. "Thank you, David. That's all I'm asking." Over the next few days, I wrestled with the decision. In the end, I agreed, but with conditions. Sarah would need to keep me updated throughout the weekend, and the kids had to stay at her parents' house, where I knew they'd be safe. When the weekend finally arrived, I dropped Olivia and Noah off at Sarah's parents' house and watched as they ran to her with open arms. The sight brought a lump to my throat, but I forced myself to stay calm. As I drove away, I realized that this was the first time in weeks I had truly been alone. No kids to take care of, no legal battles to fight, just me and my thoughts. I spent the weekend reflecting on everything that had happened, and for the first time, I felt a sense of peace. I couldn't control Sarah's choices, but I could control how I responded to them. And in that moment, I decided to let go of the anger and focus on building a better future for myself and my kids. When I picked them up on Sunday evening, they were full of stories about the weekend. Sarah had kept her word, and while I still didn't trust her completely, it was a step in the right direction. As I tucked the kids into bed that night, Olivia hugged me tightly and said, "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, sweetheart," I replied, my heart full. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were going to be okay. After that weekend, things began to settle into a rhythm I hadn't expected. Sarah, to my surprise, seemed committed to rebuilding her relationship with the kids. She showed up on time for every visit, kept her promises, and even started communicating with me in a more respectful and cooperative way. For the first time since the storm began, there was a sense of stability. But stability didn't mean trust. Not yet. While Sarah had made strides, the wounds of betrayal didn't heal overnight, and I wasn't about to risk the kids' well-being just because Sarah seemed to be turning a new leaf. One afternoon, while the kids were at school and I had a rare moment of quiet, my phone buzzed with a message from Sarah. "David, I know I have no right to ask, but can we sit down and talk? Just the two of us. There are things I need to say." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. What could she possibly say that I hadn't already heard? But another part of me, the part that still craved closure, knew I needed to hear her out. We met at a small coffee shop near the kids' school. I arrived first, sitting at a table near the window where I could see her approach. When she walked in, I was struck by how different she looked. Sarah had always been confident, almost untouchable in the way she carried herself, but now she seemed smaller, more vulnerable. "Thanks for meeting me," she said as she sat down, her voice quiet. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. She took a deep breath before starting. "I know I've hurt you in ways I can never undo, David. And I know that no matter what I say, it won't erase what I've done. But I need you to know how sorry I am for everything." I didn't respond, letting her continue. "When I started going to those parties," she said, her voice trembled, "I told myself it was harmless, that it didn't mean anything. But it wasn't harmless. It was selfish. I was selfish. I wasn't thinking about you or the kids or what it would do to us. I was only thinking about myself." Her honesty caught me off guard. For so long, I had been waiting for her to take responsibility, to acknowledge the choices she had made, and now here she was, doing just that. I don't expect forgiveness, she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I need you to know that I regret it every single day. Losing you, losing our family, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it's my fault. I know that. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. She looked genuinely remorseful, but the wounds she had inflicted were still fresh in my mind. I appreciate you saying that, I said finally. But this isn't about me anymore, Sarah. It's about the kids. They're my priority, and they always will be. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I know, and I'm going to do everything I can to be a better mother to them. That's all I want now, to give them the love and stability they deserve. As I left the coffee shop, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Her apology had been sincere, but it didn't erase the pain. It didn't rebuild the trust that had been shattered. Still, it was a step forward, a small one, but a step nonetheless. In the weeks that followed, Sarah continued to show up for the kids in ways she hadn't before. She attended their school events, helped with homework during her visits, and even started co-parenting with me in a way that felt productive and respectful. One evening, as I tucked Olivia into bed, she looked up at me and said, "Daddy, I think Mommy's trying really hard. Do you think she's better now?" Her question caught me off guard. How do you explain to a 10-year-old the complexities of betrayal and forgiveness? I think she's trying her best, I said carefully. And that's a good thing. But what's most important is that you and Noah are happy and safe. That's what matters to me. Olivia nodded, satisfied with my answer. For the first time in what felt like forever, I began to feel a sense of peace. The anger I had carried for so long was still there, but it was softer now, less consuming. I had found a new rhythm with the kids, a new sense of purpose in my role as their father. And while I wasn't ready to fully trust Sarah again, I could see that she was trying. Whether it was enough to rebuild her relationship with the kids or with me remained to be seen. But for now, I was content to focus on the present, one day at a time. Months passed, and life found a new rhythm. Sarah continued to prove herself as a mother, showing up consistently for the kids and making every effort to rebuild the trust she had shattered. Olivia and Noah began to relax around her, their laughter returning when they were with her. For their sake, I allowed her more time with them, carefully watching to ensure she didn't slip back into old habits. But trust is a fragile thing, especially when it's been broken so thoroughly. While Sarah had made strides, the scars of her betrayal ran too deep for me to ignore. The life we once had, the family I thought we had built, it was gone. And as much as I wanted to co-parent peacefully for the kids, I couldn't see a future where Sarah and I could ever be what we once were. One evening, after dropping the kids off at Sarah's for the weekend, I found myself driving aimlessly. The streets were quiet, the hum of the car engine the only sound as my thoughts drifted. The past year had been a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion, and finally a tentative acceptance of the new reality. I ended up at a small diner I used to visit years ago. Sitting in a corner booth with a cup of coffee, I let myself reflect on everything. The betrayal, the lies, the pain, it had all shaped me in ways I never anticipated. But so had the love I had for my kids, the strength I found in being their rock, and the clarity I gained in understanding what I truly valued in life. The next morning, I received an unexpected text from Sarah. "David, can we talk? Just you and me. I need to clear the air about something." Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part, the part that still wanted closure, agreed to meet. We sat down in a quiet park, the early morning sun casting long shadows across the grass. Sarah looked nervous, fidgeting with her hands as she spoke. "David," she began, her voice unsteady, "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I realized I can't keep holding on to the idea that we can fix us. I wanted to believe it was possible, but I know now that some things can't be undone." Her words surprised me. For months, I had braced myself for her to ask for another chance, to try to repair something that was beyond repair. But instead, she was acknowledging the truth we had both been avoiding. "I think you're right," I said after a long pause. "We can't go back. Too much has happened, and it wouldn't be fair to either of us, or the kids, to pretend otherwise." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I just want you to know that I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope you can find peace. You deserve that." For the first time in a long time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Her apology didn't erase the pain, but it brought a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. "Thank you," I said simply. We sat in silence for a while, watching the morning unfold around us. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was an honest one. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah and I found a balance in co-parenting. Our relationship was no longer defined by anger or resentment, but by a shared commitment to our kids. Olivia and Noah flourished in the newfound stability, and for the first time in years, I felt like we were moving in the right direction. I focused on myself too. I started taking care of my health, reconnecting with old friends, and even exploring the idea of dating again. It wasn't easy. Letting someone new into my life felt like stepping into uncharted territory, but it was a step I was finally ready to take. One evening, as I sat on the porch watching the sunset, Olivia came outside and climbed onto my lap. "Daddy," she said softly, "are you happy?" Her question caught me off guard. I thought about everything we'd been through, the pain and the healing, the anger and the forgiveness. "I think I am," I said honestly. She smiled and rested her head on my chest. "Me too." In that moment, I realized that happiness wasn't about erasing the past or pretending it never happened. It was about finding peace in the present and hope for the future. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were exactly where we were meant to be.